Twice under Kevin Rudd's leadership, the Senate knocked back his carbon pricing scheme. Today it was third time lucky for Julia Gillard. Her carbon tax legislation made it through the upper house, taking Australia into uncharted economic waters and shifting the political debate. Political correspondent Tom Iggulden reports from Canberra.
The Senate vote was never in doubt.
Order there being 36 ayes and 32 noes, the matter is resolved in the affirmative. Pursuant to...
There was applause from public galleries, hugs between Greens, and for the government, the end of an exhausting decade of debate. The former Climate Change Minister finally uttered the long-hoped-for words.
This is an historic moment. This is an historic reform, a reform long overdue.
You will wear your flagrant breach of promise to the Australian people like a crown of thorns.
And the opposition, what hypocrites!
The government brought the Senate vote forward by 2 days. It took place as Tony Abbott was in transit to a long-planned meeting in London.
We've had the Leader of the Opposition take off with his tail between his legs today after all of the tough guy talk. I mean, what a spineless retreat.
Both sides agree the carbon tax will change the country dramatically. It was passed through Parliament despite Julia Gillard commanding a minority government.
I'm not someone given to a great deal of self-analysis or self-obsession. I'll let all of my friends here do this.
Let me have a go.
All right.
The reason that this legislation is passing is because the PM is as tough as nails.
The Coalition was also lining up for comment, but to attack the independents and Greens who drove the tax through the Parliament.
It's the greatest sellout since Judas Iscariot took 30 pieces of silver.
From time to time in this country and around the world we see democracy falter, but I think we very rarely see it collapse, where some 12% of the vote dictates what the rest of Australia does.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the grim to the grinning.
The Greens voted down Kevin Rudd's emissions trading scheme and say a carbon tax that cuts out carbon traders is a better system.
People like it. They're happy about it. There's a few exceptions, but we better get out of this downfall, eh?
Thank you.
Now comes the test for all sides of the debate. With the tax now a reality, claims about its effect will be proved one way or the other.
Today's vote does mean that we will commence creating our clean energy future with all of the jobs and opportunities that come with that future.
So the result for Australia is higher electricity prices, higher gas prices, but lower jobs, lower investments and emissions simply transfer offshore to China.
Cutting carbon pollution by 160 million tonnes in 2020, the equivalent of taking 45 million cars off the road.
Global emissions will go up rather than down, and Australian emissions will go up by 43 million tonnes on the government's own modelling.
A news poll published today showed a slight uptick for both the Prime Minister's approval rating and Labor's primary vote, which is now back above 30%. It's the kind of momentum shift the government's been looking for. Much has been sacrificed to get to this point. But as the opposition pointed out today, the next election will be a referendum on the carbon tax.
If elected, we will repeal the carbon tax and we will repeal it completely.
The huffing and puffing we're seeing from the opposition, the statements about signatures in blood, all of that is to disguise the fact they've got their fingers firmly crossed behind their backs. They've got really no intention of repealing this.
The opposition says a win at the next election would give it a mandate to repeal the tax that Labor would have to respect, not on Julia Gillard's watch.
We will support our package. We will support it today, we will support it tomorrow, we will support it in a year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time.
A decade that'll be spent in large part pondering the events of today. Tom Iggulden, Lateline.